Why don't we begin a little prayer in the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
Amen.
So, loving God, we thank you for the wonderful gift that you're going to be bestowing upon our community, the gift of this wonderful vocation. We ask that you would continue to protect us during this COVID and all the other issues people are dealing with. We thank you for all the blessings that you give to us, the abundant blessings that we have to be fortunate for in our lives. And we ask you just to send your Holy Spirit down upon us if we have this wonderful meeting tonight. We ask all this through Christ our Lord. Amen. So Father, Son, Holy Spirit. Amen. So guys, can you just everybody mute themselves if you don't mind?
Okay.
Because we'll get feedback. Am I able to do that as a co? Veronica, are you still here? Veronica, can I mute everybody like as a co-guest or whatever?
You can. Yes,
How do I
you
do
can.
that?
We go to.
I'm hitting more. So we're recording it. So John's got us recording. That's cool. So nobody curse. Okay. If everyone's so Ken, you're not muted over there, buddy. Okay, great.
Okay.
So for those of you who probably heard at Mass, we're blessed this year to have Brother John Winkowitsch joining us. I just thought it'd be a nice way to introduce him to the community. He'll be joining us in about another month or so. So I'm going to just turn it over to Brother John. I thought Brother John would tell his vocation story, tell us how it is. He's sitting here getting ready to join us. And then after that, we'll have some Q&A. So with that, I'm going to mute myself. And Brother John, it's all you.
Okay. Well, hello, everybody. I'm Brother John, as Father Jerome said, and just a short little rundown of my history, I guess. I was born and raised in Montana, a small town called Cut Bank. It's right next to the Canadian border, about an hour east of Glacier National Park. So it's very beautiful country. And it's pretty much a farming community. My dad was a farmer, my brother and his family farmers. I helped out on the farm when I was growing up, barley, grain, irrigation, things like that. So that's kind of the community I came from in Montana. But I wasn't born and raised Catholic, I'm a convert. And that's kind of the first part of my conversion story, or my vocation story, was first converting to the Catholic faith. And that came about, I guess what kick-started that was when I went off to college for the first time. I was raised in an Assembly of God church. That's where my parents took me growing up. That's a Protestant, Pentecostal, evangelical type church. And we'd go to Sunday school and you have your Sunday service. And Sunday services basically consisted of singing hymns for about 30 to 45 minutes and then listening to the pastor preach for 30 to 45 minutes. And that was church service when I was growing up. But while I was going to school and while I was growing up, I never really took the theology or the history or any of that seriously. But I did definitely take to heart what my mom and dad and what people were telling me I should do, right? I just trusted that these people have lived their lives. They've learned from their mistakes. They know what's best. I'm just going to trust them. And so I really tried to follow the ethical template they gave me. And that's pretty much what religion and faith was to me growing up. It's just, this is how you should live your life in order to be happy and successful and thriving as a human being, right? But as far as God and Trinity and Jesus and stuff like that, I never thought about that at all. That wasn't until I went off to college. Now, I graduated from high school and got a bunch of scholarships to go to University of Puget Sound in Tacoma, Washington. And I showed up and I was planning to study math and computer science, work for Microsoft, get rich quick, retire early, that whole mentality, right? But when I got to college, it was kind of a culture shock a little bit for me, coming from this small town in Montana, right? And I saw what people were doing with their lives, and it was just, I don't know, it made me reassess my foundations, I guess. Like, I realized that what my parents had given me was great, but I'm like, wait, there's got to be some more solid foundation, because I don't have a solid enough foundation to offer it to other people, I guess, is how I would say that. And so, yeah, this is kind of a little bit strange, but I ended up dropping out of college, and it was the day after my 19th birthday, August 15th. My birthday's August 14th. And I just decided I need to find the truth. I need to find a foundation underpinning all this good and all this virtue that my parents gave me, right? I can't just depend on these habits. I have to find some intellectual foundation. I have to find some type of foundation so that I can offer to these other people that I saw suffering in college. And so I don't know how to put it. I just basically started reading about 14 hours a day for 6 months straight, from about 2 in the afternoon until about 3 or 4 in the morning. And then I would walk around my hometown praying and talking with God about everything I read that day. And I just did that for about 6 months straight, from August 15th till Ash Wednesday the following year. And it's really, I don't know, this is kind of just a conversational style presentation of my vocation story. So just trying to repackage it for you guys. I wanted to find the truth. And what I was given in my first experience of college was not conducive to happiness. It was not conducive to a thriving life. So I needed to find a foundation. And I started off very open-minded, I guess, because I'm like, who knows if this little church I grew up in Montana is the truth, right? There's all those religions in Asia and the Middle East and all these other places. I thought, okay, I'm just going to say, okay, God, you lead me to where I can love you as perfectly as you love me. That's where I want to be. I want to love you, and lead me to where I can do that. And so this was definitely a moment of grace. But at that very first day, August 15th, I started with 6 principles. Like, if I'm going to do all this reading, I need something to guide me. And the principles I used to guide me was, the first one was that truth is not relative. Truth is knowable. I had confidence I would be able to find the truth. My second principle was that truth is eternal, whereas falsehood fades away. So I just thought that the longer something has been around, the greater the chance I'll find some truth in it, right? I mean, we're just overwhelmed with so much data these days, so much information. It's constantly coming, it's constantly streaming in. How am I supposed to decide what is the truth and what is not? When there's all this fake news and everybody trying to spin the story their own way. And I know, if it's been around a long time, I'll have a greater chance of finding the truth. So this was completely arbitrary. I don't know why I picked this date, but I remember August 15th, I'm like, I'm not going to read anything written after 1700. It's too recent. I need to read things older than that, because I'll more likely find a grain of truth. So that was my second. Third principle I had guiding my search was, I wanted to seek the good. And I knew in order to find that, I had to look at the fruit of all these various religions that I was going to inevitably be looking at. Because you can't really assess the Trinity. Like, what does that even mean? I didn't even know when I was a teenager, like, the Trinity, who knows? But I thought, I can look at the fruit. I can see what produces the most good. So I was doing this seeking in order to find as much goodness as possible, I guess. The fourth little principle was, I didn't want to jump to conclusions. So I was just going to get a broad range and read a whole bunch of stuff, and just not try to draw any conclusions too early. And my fifth principle was, it was just going to be me and God. This was probably just from my upbringing about how you can just pray to Jesus, and it's you and Jesus, and you have this personal relationship with Christ. And there were a lot of good things about my upbringing. The Bible was so important. The prayer was so important. personal relationship with Christ was important. So I'm like, okay, God, you got to lead me. I don't want to get sucked into some smooth opinion disguised as truth or something like that. You just got to lead me. And then the last principle, the sixth one that I used to guide me, was that I was going to seek like a child. Now, this one's kind of weird. It's more like I was going to let my heart guide me, because I was a teenager. I knew I didn't know much. I didn't understand much. I knew the world was huge and I was just a kid. But I guess I just trusted God to pull me towards him and pull my heart towards him as I did this reading. And so with those 6 principles, I started with the Bible and read the Bible cover to cover. It takes about 60 hours, 60, 70 hours. Then read the Quran cover to cover, the Bhagavad Gita, the Hindu sacred scriptures, their gospels, Buddhist texts, Dhammapada, the Upanishads. And all the time I was doing all this reading, I'm like, lead me to where I can love you as perfectly as you love me. And it's really strange. I mean, I wish I could go back and see that whole 6-month process, how it actually led to the faith the way it did. There are little points that really stick out, that really struck me as strange and unusual. One in particular was when I was reading the Quran. Reading the Quran, it's not that big. It's a little bit bigger than all the Gospels combined. But there was one verse, it's like the 5th chapter of it, verse about 82 or 83, I think, where it said, "You will find your best friends among the Christians, because there's priests and monks among them who do not behave proudly." And I read that and I'm like, wait, I want the best friends. I want to be Christian. Why do I want to be Christian? I'm reading the Quran. Why do I want to be Christian reading the Quran? This is really weird. But there were little things that would pull me towards the faith, towards Christianity, and towards the Catholic faith eventually. Another thing was, when I was reading about all these Hindu mystics and swamis and holy men, there was one particular guy I was reading about who walked around just in a robe, no shoes on his feet, and he just carried 2 books with him his entire life, the Bhagavad Gita and the Imitation of Christ. I'm like, what? Imitation of Christ? What's this guy doing? He's Hindu. Why is he reading this? So then I had to look up the book and read it. And at the time, I thought it was some obscure thing that I had just discovered on my own. I'd never seen it before, but I fell in love with it. It was so beautiful. And so, yeah, I don't know. I still consider that 6-month period, honestly, to be the most productive 6 months of my life. Ash Wednesday is branded in my memory, such a beautiful moment when everything kind of gelled together and I knew what the next step was going to be. And everything kind of gelled together, and I discovered Thomas Aquinas College in California. Just because I'd found Thomas Aquinas, I liked some of the things I'd read. And so I just typed Thomas Aquinas into Google and up popped Thomas Aquinas College. And so that's where I went. And I graduated from there and was baptized my freshman year, baptized, confirmed, received into the Catholic faith my freshman year of college at Thomas Aquinas College. And that's also where I met my first Dominican, was at Thomas Aquinas College. Now, once I became Catholic, it was still quite a while before I felt called to the priesthood. After graduating from college, I went out to the East Coast and lived in Washington, D.C. for about 8 years. The first 3 years, I was going to grad school at Catholic University of America studying philosophy. And then I worked for 1 year for this pharmaceutical consulting company. And then the last 4 years out there, I taught middle school and high school, and absolutely loved it. Those last 2 years of teaching were 2 of the happiest years of my life. Absolutely incredible school out there. Still keep in contact with some of the students I had and some of their families. It's just a wonderful, wonderful place where I had the privilege to teach out there. But it was kind of at the end of my 3rd year teaching that God picked me up by the scruff of the neck and said, wait, I need to get to seminary. Now, how did that happen? let me back up a little bit to my conversion. When I was baptized at TAC my freshman year, well, no, I'm going to back up even a little bit further. I'm going to back up to before I went to TAC, right before I left Montana to fly to California. I sat down with my mom and dad and had a conversation with them. And I said, Mom, I think I'm going to fly out to California, go to this college out there. Now, at this point, remember, I had already done my seeking. I'd found the Catholic faith. Basically, I was on board. But I showed my mom the brochure to Thomas Aquinas College, and she looked through it, and the first thing she said was, well, at least you don't have to become Catholic if you go there. And I'm like, what? Yeah, it was the first big hurdle, I guess, right? I'd done all this seeking, 6 months, here I go, I'm solid, I'm good to go, right? Sat down with my mom and dad upstairs, and I remember this conversation. I'm like, Mom and Dad, okay, all the philosophies, all the religions of the world, which one do you think allows us to love God the most, right? And my dad, who was a simple farmer, never finished high school, just farmed his whole life, he looked at me and just said, I don't know. They have all those religions in Asia. I just read the Bible. That's what I believe, right? But my mom, she looked at me and she said, I don't know what's right. The only thing I know is the Catholics are wrong. And I'm like, no. But at the time I thought, it's okay. I just did all this reading, this research. I have all my arguments lined up. I can just share the beautiful saints and stories I'd read and found, and I can share them with my mom, and she'll see the same beautiful stuff I found, and it'll all be good to go, right? So I did. I started sharing stuff with her. But I would tell her something, and I'd explain something, and she'd seem to get it, and then a couple days later, she wouldn't remember it, and I would do it again. And then that's when I started realizing that my mom was getting Alzheimer's. My grandma had Alzheimer's, and it's hereditary. And so now my mom was getting Alzheimer's, and she couldn't remember any of these beautiful things I was trying to share with her about the faith. So that was kind of my first big crisis moment, right? And it was in that moment that I realized, wait, there are some people who are just born in the Catholic faith, right? They're given this great gift. It's kind of the path of goodness. You're just inculcated with all these wonderful habits. Your parents pass on this beautiful gift to you. It's beautiful, the path of goodness. But there's also a path of truth when you seek the truth. And that's kind of what I did those 6 months, was seeking the truth to find the goodness and the beauty of the faith, right? But then I had this wrestling match with God. Like, what about people like my mom then? Like someone who was not born in the Catholic faith, who was not given this gift from infancy, and who doesn't have the capacity to seek the truth. Like, how's someone like that supposed to find this beautiful gift you've given us, God? And I realized the most amazing way and the most effective way to share and to show people the beauty of God's church is through sanctity and holiness. It's the path of beauty. It's conversion through the beauty of holiness. And I realized that's how you show people the beauty of the faith. You have to be a saint. You have to live as a saint. You have to pray that God will raise up saints, because nobody can argue with the mother, Saint Teresa of Calcutta. What she does is just so inspiring and so amazing and so beautiful. And you just see the light of Christ shine through her and her love and her mercy for it's amazing. And so I knew the path of beauty is the path of sanctity, the path of holiness is the most powerful way to convert people. And so that's what I knew I had to do. And the rest of the time my mom had on this earth was to show her the beauty of the faith by living it as fully as possible. Okay, now that was a big flashback, right? Now we're back in grad school, third year of teaching high school. The moment I knew I needed to get to seminary was the moment I realized my entire 10 years as a Catholic, the one prayer that I'd been praying for that decade was begging God to purify the church and raise up saints. Raise up saints so that the world could see the beauty of this faith that gave me so much joy and happiness, right? And it hit me my third year of teaching, like, wait, how are saints born? How are they fed? How is the church purified? How does this all happen? And it's through the sacraments, it's through the faith, it's through the beauty, it's through the grace that God gives us in the sacraments. Saints are born in baptism, they're strengthened in confirmation, they're fed in the Eucharist, their sins are forgiven, and the church is purified, and the sacrament of reconciliation and confession. And it just, all of a sudden, I knew that this thing I've been praying for 10 years, I wanted to be a conduit of God's grace to help him accomplish purifying the church and raising up saints. And I wanted to give, I wanted to be just a way for the sacraments to get to people so that they could change the world with the beauty of the faith. And so at the time I was already 31. And so I thought, oh, religious life is pretty awesome. That takes forever. So I'm just going to go be a diocesan priest. The bishop tells me I'll get ordained in 4 years. That's so much quicker. So I started off in diocesan seminary first. And there were a lot of reasons. I spent a lot of time discerning, right? My call felt primarily towards priesthood and sacramental ministry rather than to a particular charism. Religious life and different religious orders have different charisms, right? But I'm like, no, I want to sacraments, priesthood is what I'm focused on. And so that it made sense in that sense. But when I got to diocesan seminary, it's just like any other relationship, really. Like if you're called to marriage, you're called to whatever vocation you're called to, it's always a relationship. It's always a relationship. A vocation is a relationship. And so it's a two-way street. And once you enter formation for religious life, it's this conversation between you and the church. And through formation, through spiritual direction, through conversation with your formators and superiors, the church is also trying to fit you where they think you will be most effective at saving souls and getting as many people as possible to heaven, right? So after 2 years in diocesan seminary, my formators and spiritual directors were not so gently nudging me towards the Dominicans. And so that's when I made the jump and transferred from diocesan seminary to the Dominicans. And now it's my 4th year, just finished my 4th year wearing the habit. It'll be my 5th year wearing the habit next year. Starting September will be my anniversary of first vows. But yeah, it's been good. Did 1 year novitiate, studied here for 2 years, and then I just did a residency down at our parish in Eagle Rock down in Los Angeles, which was good. It was unfortunate that the Rams did horrible. I'm a huge Rams fan. I've been a Rams fan since I was a tiny little kid. And it's a painful existence because the Rams are only good once every 20 years. But every 20 years, they make it to the Super Bowl, and that's exciting. Yeah, and I'm a Dodgers fan too. That was a lot of fun. I like a lot of LA stuff. So I don't know what else to say. I could ramble quite a bit, but that's just kind of an overview of what led to my vocation and my conversion and where I'm at now. So I don't know. I'd like it more of a conversation. So
I'll start with the question. What do your parents think, your family think about you becoming a priest now?
Well, I just have one brother. He's 14 years older than I am. I was a late surprise, a very late surprise. My dad was 55 years old when I was born.
Wow.
And my parents just didn't think they could have any more kids until, surprise, here I came. But because I was such a late surprise, both my parents have already passed on already. Now, my dad did convert before he passed on, came into the church. I was my father's godfather, which is pretty amazing. And my brother and his family, they're not very religious. I know everybody has their own timeline. I mean, my dad came into the church at 88 years old, so you can get baptized at any point, you know. God's mercy extends. So we'll just have to see. My brother has been military his whole life, basically. Right out of high school, he joined the military, and he just returned from a tour over in Poland. He was up there setting up a base and just got back in the United States today, actually. He just put in his retirement papers, so it was his final final tour over there. But when I was explaining to him this shift from diocesan seminary to the Dominicans, the way I explained it to him that made sense to him and his military background was, I'm just basically joining Special Forces priesthood now. It's priesthood, but with a special force focus of preaching. So we're itinerant preachers, take it a little bit more seriously. It's a little bit more hardcore. It's kind of like Special Forces priesthood. And my brother's like, oh, okay, I get that. So, yeah.
If anybody else has a question, just raise your hand and we'll call on you. So let me go through here. Any hands? Sue, you got to unmute yourself. You have to unmute yourself, Sue. Can I unmute her? How do we do this?
I just wanted to know how old Father is. I'm brother John.
How old I am?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm 40. I'm 40.
Holy
Over the hill.
The baby. The baby.
Yeah.
Gosh.
Yeah.
Okay.
Anybody else? Okay, I see Candace. Well, the name says Candace, but okay.
Yeah, it's Candace's iPad. It's Brad.
Hi, Brad.
Welcome, Brother
Brad.
John. I'm excited to meet you. My daughter is a graduate of University of Montana.
Oh,
And,
really? My nephew's starting there next month.
Really?
Yeah, yeah.
Anyway, I was just curious, how in the world would you become an LA is it Italian-fied, LA-fied? How would you become that?
It's called an Angelian.
Angeline. How would you become Angeline from Montana? I mean, it's
Okay. It's a little bit accidental. The first piece of that puzzle is the Rams, the football team. Because I played football in high school. I love playing football. I had a few offers actually to play football in college, but I had academic scholarships as well. So I went the academic route. But when I was growing up playing football, there's no professional team in Montana or in any state bordering Montana.
right.
So myself and all my friends and everybody just kind of picked random NFL teams. So there's nobody else among my circle of friends growing up who likes the Rams like I do. We all pick different teams to have that rivalry thing. And the reason I picked the Rams is because I thought it was the coolest mascot. Man, the first ones to paint the horns on the helmet, they hit each other just like bighorn rams do. My dad, my brother, we were hunters growing up, and that was kind of like
Perfect
the
sense.
most exotic, amazing hunt you can go on is the bighorn sheep hunt. You got to put in a lottery. You can only go like it's super rare. It's super difficult. It's the most difficult hunting trip you can do. So Bighorn Rams, that was initially what made me a Rams fan in the 80s. Now, my brother was also a Rams fan, so it's kind of genetically passed on as well. But he was a fan when the Rams were actually really amazing in the 70s and won the division for a decade straight, right?
Yeah. Roman Gabriel.
Yeah, Roman Gabriel, all those guys. So, yeah, anyway, that's initially where it started. So I was a Rams fan. They moved to St. Louis. I was still a Rams fan. I was super happy to see them come back where I initially started liking them. That was initially the only connection to LA. But then I went to college out here, right? So I went to TAC, Thomas Aquinas College, and that's when I started going to Dodgers games. And that's
Why
when
don't you tell it?
picked up.
So Thomas Aquinas College is a little bit north of LA, right?
Yeah, it's in Ventura County. It's a small Catholic school, only about 350 students, but it's a unique school in that all the classes are set up discussion style. So everybody reads just great books and you come to class and you talk about it and you figure it out. It's a very unique school, but it was definitely what I needed. I mean, when I graduated from high school, I was all math and science as programming, work for Microsoft. I was voted the quietest person in my graduating class, but also most likely to become a millionaire. And now I'm taking a vow of poverty and joining the order of preachers. So that's completely blown in all ways.
You blew it.
I did. But it was what I needed. That college experience is what I needed because you're graded entirely on class participation and discussion and getting outside of yourself. So it was exactly what I needed. It's not for everybody, but it was exactly what I needed. So Yeah, and that's when I started watching Dodgers.
Amy, I saw your hand up there, Amy. You got to unmute. We got to unmute Amy.
Okay, finally got it. Thanks. John, thank you so much. It's so neat to hear your story tonight and all the pieces and what happened to you. So for all of us book lovers, during those 14 hours a day that you walked around reading, tell us your top 1 or 2 books that you just really loved.
Okay. Well, I told you what I started with, right? The major world religious texts. One that blew my mind when I was 19 was St. Augustine's Confessions. I read that and it was so, now, okay, if you actually read it, you read St. Augustine's conversion story, right? And in his actual conversion story, he talks about when he was 19 and he's going to find the truth when he's 19. And I'm reading this when I was 19. I'm like, oh my gosh. But then you watch him go off on this whole huge side thing and the Gnosticism and all this other weird stuff. And then it's not until later when he's 40 when he comes back and finds the Catholic faith, right? And I'm reading this at 19. I'm like, well, I don't need to make that long detour then. I could just jump to the end. So that was really helpful and had a big impact on me. I mentioned Imitation of Christ. I loved that because now that's not a very Dominican text, and a lot of Dominicans it's kind of foo-foo. But I think it's amazing because he's so succinct. He can have a chapter on humility and it's just a paragraph and it's just so full of gems. He doesn't waste a single word. It's just, I loved it. I like that clarity. I like the conciseness. And that's honestly what struck me most reading Thomas Aquinas when I first stumbled across him when I was a teenager, right? Because there were all these big questions that were floating around in my head. And then here was somebody who was bold enough to always put it as a yes or no question. You don't get much more simple than that, like yes or no. And he says, here are the arguments, no. Here's why they're wrong. Here's my argument. He's just so equitable. He's just so forthright. He's not trying to spin a story. He's not trying to write the narrative. He's not trying to convince you of something. He's like, here are the arguments. Here are the counter arguments. Here's the answer to the yes or no question. And that clarity was beautiful to me when I was trying to sift through like all the internet age, everything going on. And that was a breath of fresh air. Yeah, I don't know. I read, actually, this is a whole chunk of my story I left out. It was, I think, after about 3 months of that 6 months where my fifth principle, right, myself and God alone, kind of fell by the wayside. And I realized this is impossible. I'm never going to be able to do this on my own. And so I started praying for a spiritual director. If you get deep into spiritual reading, you're going to hear about the need for a spiritual director. So that's what I started doing, praying for a spiritual director. And I remember one book in particular, the Heliotropium it's called, but the first chapter of the second book, it talks about this guy beseeching God unceasingly for 10 years before he found a spiritual director. I'm like, I don't have 10 years to wait, God, you gotta move a little bit faster than this. And so what I started doing actually was going around to all the different churches in my hometown. Now this was only a few months in, so I wasn't like, I'm Catholic yet, I was still seeking, but I would go to all the different churches in my hometown and listen to the sermon and then meet with the pastor and talk with him about faith and life and everything. And one of the questions I would always ask them were, what are the two most influential books or two most important books you've read in your life? Now, I made it two because I was sure that all these Protestant pastors would say the Bible is one of them and I needed something else. But they gave me a lot of interesting things to read as well. So I read a lot of the different Protestant reformers, a lot of Luther and Wesley brothers and things like that. But I will say that one of the things that really struck me during that time was reading Thomas Merton's 7-Story Mountain, his conversion story. that was also very impactful. Reading Wesley, the founder of Methodism, actually, that was a turning point for me, because I'd read some of the Protestant reformers founders, like Luther, and that while there was some good things there was also some really strange things there that I'm like, oh my gosh, how can anybody follow this? It was kind of scary, some of the things he would say, right? And then I would read some of the later Protestant reformers who would be like, wait a sec, there's something wrong there. We need to seek the truth. And then I suddenly got this glimpse of how it just continued to spiderweb, the shattering, because it's a little bit off and people want to find the truth. So they need to break off to make it. And it's like, no. Now it's like people seeking the good even causes more division. And it's not just rebellion, it's also seeking the good and all these different things. And it just becomes so complicated. That was also eye-opening to me. I'm talking a long time about different things I read. Anyway, that's good. That's enough.
Any other questions? Somebody else? I'm going to just pause so I can see hands. Any hands? Anybody?
No, but I just want to say, I'm sure Augustine is up there laughing that that one of his Confessions was one of your most important books.
Yeah. That's good.
So anybody else? Let me see hands. Not seeing any hands here.
I've really enjoyed getting to know you a little bit. I can't wait to meet you in person. You're only 2 days short of really a great birthday. I'm August 16th. Spoken like a true Leo, right?
Yeah.
2 days short, just 2 days.
Yeah, so I'm also very excited. I told Brother John he's got a PhD in philosophy, so lots of philosophy classes will be coming our way. He's got a background in teaching, so I'm like, just the first year of priesthood and getting ready to preach and teach. That's it. I'll do all the administrative nonsense. You just preach and teach. So yeah, I'm looking forward to him coming on board as well. So last call for questions. Anyone? Let me look here. Any questions here? Any questions here? Okay, so I think that's everybody. So Brother John, again, we're all very anxious to meet you in person, like see you face to face, and just getting ready to see what the Lord has in mind when you write your next chapter of your confessions. So would you
one
like—
thing that would be kind of neat, since there's not too many people, just to hear a little bit from each of you. Just, hello,
Great.
This is my name. This is how long I've been part of St. Raymond's family.
Jean, say
Whatever
hello
you
to
wanna
us.
say.
Somebody she's muted. We need to unmute Jean. Jean, give us your 30-second elevator speech.
Well, I've been around, been a member of the parish since 1963. I'm more than twice your age, and you're younger than my children. So, but I'm awfully glad to see that we've got some wonderful, ambitious, enthusiastic people who really want to spark the place and give us another dimension. Because Father Jerome is wonderful, but it would be nice to have another face around and some more ideas for.
I agree.
I think for the school too, it would be wonderful to have something like that. I know when we were in school, in Catholic school, it was always nice to have the priest come in and say hello and do some of that and give a little different perspective on stuff. And so I'm glad. So I'm on the parish council. I will be around. They're having a hard time getting rid of me, so that's okay.
All right, Sue. I see Sue up there. How you doing, Sue?
I'm doing pretty good. I don't really have anything to say. I've always liked cowboys, though. I always wanted to see cowboys, so there we go.
You got one.
Got a cowboy.
You got one.
Yeah, we got one now.
All right, Ken.
That's good.
You're muted. Ken's muted.
Unmute him.
Okay, you're good, Ken.
Okay. Hey, Brother John, welcome. Really excited to have you here. My wife Danielle and I have both been listening to you. Sounds really cool. Some of those, Augustine's a kick, isn't he? Some of those stories are pretty good. Yeah, so it sounds like we'll be able to look forward to some very interesting, thoughtful homilies. And It's and there is no way you look 40, man. I'd
Yes,
say you look
yes.
30.
There's 12.
Yeah, I mean,
Sure.
but I guess it's all that good living, right?
No,
okay.
it's just
Yeah.
I clicked the button that improves my appearance on Zoom video calls, so it's getting rid of all the wrinkles.
Great.
I
So
need
you'll be working with Amy, Lori, and Ronica, so you'll get to know them very well. So I see Joanne. Let's unmute Joanne. Joanne, you there?
I don't see her.
I don't see you.
I see.
There
Up
we
there she
go.
is. Hi, Joanne.
Hello.
No? All right. Who else? Am I missing anybody?
How about, did Brad go on Candace's iPad?
Yeah, Brad.
Unmute. There we go. I'm actually pretty new. I actually met Father Jerome through the pandemic crap that we've been going through, and been longtime St. Pius parishioners, and our kids went there, and it just something struck a chord, and we started going to mass outdoors, and I felt like by the time I actually met Father Jerome and Deacon, I was just like, I know these people. It's like I've never met them, but I know them because of virtue of mass and homilies. So they were really uplifting personalities that I've met since middle of March, and it's helped me get through. Hey, I'm a podiatrist, so I always jokingly tell priests we're in the same business. We're all saving souls, and usually it's like, yeah, but it's really refreshing to see a welcoming parish in our neighboring neighborhood, and I feel very much welcome. I'm really looking forward to growing and meeting more people at St. Raymond's.
Well, my hiking feet need a look over. I'll be calling you.
Good. I did.
And I'd like to say that my ingrown toenail never came back after Brad worked on it.
All right. Well, there we go.
Thanks very much, Brad.
Fabulous. I did Windy Hill Open Reserve yesterday.
Yeah.
I have an 18-month-old dog named Theo, and I thought I was going to kill him. I was looking for where am I going to bury a hole to put this 85 carcass in. I was like, it's like something's not quite right. So it's a beautiful walk if you haven't done it. So.
Anybody else? Did we miss anybody?
The other Sue.
The other Sue. Other Sue, where are you?
Sue, do you want to introduce yourself?
What other ones? I only see me.
No, she means
Sorry,
Sue
we've
Andrews.
got Sue Andrews.
There she is.
No?
Sue, can you hear us?
Yeah, we can't hear you, Sue.
Okay.
I do want to say welcome. I'm sorry I didn't say welcome.
Oh, no, that's good. Nice to meet you, Sue.
Welcome,
All right. Well, we're going to have lots of time to get to know Brother John coming to hang with us. So I want to thank you so much, Brother John, for making the time for us tonight. Thank everybody for joining us. And we'll see you guys either live stream or live. So, Brother John, you want to give us a closing prayer?
Okay, sure. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit.
Amen.
Heavenly Father, thank you for this time to meet wonderful new friends who I will be joining soon and get to know better and better, and help us all grow closer to you in love of your Son and your Mother Mary. Wrap us tightly together and guide us closer to the heart of your Son. Thank you for this time, and we love you. In the name of the Father, and the Son, and the Holy Spirit. Amen.
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 All right. Thanks, everybody. See you soon.
Bye.
Bye. See you soon.
Bye.